So the week started off by going to Bradford Interchange and taking the train to London King's Cross. Rode on the Bradford to London train rather than the Leeds to London train, which I normally do, so this was the first time I had ever ridden on the Grand Central. It is a stopping route, so it takes an hour longer than the fast train from Leeds, but I did get some chance to do some PhD work, and it was quite sunny on the journey, so that was really nice. I arrived in London at lunchtime and bumped into this one. She had come also from Bradford to London for a different reason and happened to be there at a similar time. And we got a quick drink and some chips together before I jumped on the tube from King's Cross to London Waterloo. Had to change in Euston. After navigating the manically busy London Waterloo station, I managed to get on my train from Waterloo to Portsmouth. I then met the organiser of the conference that I was speaking at. She picked me up at the train station and took me out for dinner. I didn't get any photos or videos of that time just because I was with her and it was a lovely evening. She then dropped me off at the hotel, the Holiday Inn. I had a lovely cosy evening in at the Holiday Inn on the Portsmouth coast, and I watched this old classic, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, which I haven't watched in probably about 20 years, so I just relaxed and watched that. It was quite fun, actually. The gorgeous view from my hotel the next morning when after breakfast I got a taxi about 15 minutes 20 minutes to this church in Portsmouth where I was taking part in a safeguarding conference for Portsmouth Diocese, and I was speaking on topics to do with my PhD on and to do with being in trauma informed. After the conference finished at about 4 p.m, I got a taxi back over to near my hotel, which was quite close to Portsmouth Anglican Cathedral. So I had a little look around the cathedral, which was quite minimalistic, but really nice to see. After visiting the cathedral, I walked about 10 minutes or so along the coast. The sun was beginning to set, but it was still really beautiful and shining, and it was quite warm. And I had a really lovely little stroll along the coast before going back to the hotel to pick up my case. Having collected my case, I went to the hovercraft terminal, which is here, and just as I arrived, I watched the hovercraft before mine leaving. So this is the hovercraft about 20 minutes before mine, and it's leaving Portsmouth and heading off to the Isle of Wight. It was really cool to watch. There is a ferry that goes from Portsmouth to the Isle of Wight and back, which takes about half an hour each way, or you can get this hovercraft, which takes about 10 minutes. It is one of the last surviving high-speed commercial hovercrafts in the world, and it was really fun to watch as well as really fun to ride. So this is watching from the window of the terminal, watching it coming back in from the Isle of Wight. And then once the passengers got off, then I was able to get on. So this is me getting on to the hovercraft now. Inside it is just seating, you just sit down, it's a 10-minute ride. And then the crew climb up, they drive from up top, a little cabin up on the top. It was a really high-speed 10-minute journey, so a journey that would take about half an hour on a ferry was 10 minutes on the hovercraft. This is in the Isle of Wight, having just disembarked the hovercraft, and then from the bridge I could see it leaving again. So this is what I've just got off, and it's just getting ready to leave and head back to Portsmouth. And such a great view to see it kind of rising up and speeding off. It was just really cool to watch from this clear view. Having grabbed a really quick Subway sandwich for dinner, I walked a couple of minutes to Ride Escapade train station. Here I picked up a 15-minute train to Shanklin, which is a small town where my B&B was. As I was waiting for the train, you could still see the hovercrafts coming in and out at the station, and then the train arrived. It was more like a tram, and it took about 15 minutes to get to Shanklin, and by the time I got off, the sun had gone down. It was about a 2-minute walk from Shanklin station to my B&B, and this was the cute little room at my B&B. The lady and her son who ran the B&B were so friendly, and they provided such a lovely breakfast. I then walked a few minutes to a local bus stop and picked up the Island Coaster bus, which is one of the kind of loop or circular routes of the island, mainly for tourists that take much longer route to get to somewhere but show amazing views. Some of the coaster and breezer buses had audio kind of descriptions. This one didn't, but it was such a great ride, and I arrived at the Needles, which is one of the most famous bays. Allen Bay and the Needles is apparently one of the most famous attractions on the Isle of Wight. So the only way to get to the famous Allen Bay is by boat. You can't drive there, or you can go over the cliff. There were some really long steps. I think there were several hundred steps, and you could walk up and down for free, or you could pay about £4 and go on this cool little chairlift, which is what I did. So at first it felt all right. This is just where you're going along towards the cliff, and then as you reach the cliff, that's when I started to feel a little bit anxious going straight down the cliff. Needles. We're coming up to the
So this is the drop off,
and it just went straight down the cliff, and I actually started to feel a little bit sick and anxious then, but it was still really enjoyable.
And we're going down. But you can see the needles.
There you can see the steps that you can go up and down for free, but I decided obviously to pay for the chairlift. Also, one of the things that makes Allen Bay really famous is the different coloured rock formation, or kind of sand chalk cliffs in different colours. A second thing that makes this bay really famous is what's called the Needles, which you can just see in the distance behind me, are these kind of sticky out rocks that stick out into the sea, and the famous lighthouse there. You can take a boat out to the Needles. There's two options: the slower ferry, kind of calmer ferry, or the high-speed rib boat. I really wanted to do the high-speed rib boat, but when I asked, they told me it wouldn't go out for just one person. So I agreed to do the slower ferry. But I was just on the ferry. I'd been on the ferry about 2 minutes. I hadn't set off yet. I was waiting to go. And then the guy came and told me that another couple had come and said they wanted to do the high-speed rib boat. So if I wanted to go on with them, they were still going to do the rib boat now. So in the end, I got to do that instead, which was what I really wanted to do and was really fun. I guess either option of the boat would be great, but you got some amazing views of the multicolored cliffs, which was great. And it was really fun, even though it was a little bumpy and windy, but that's obviously part of the experience of a rib boat. And you can see here, I'm just passing the little slower paced ferry that I originally was thinking I'd have to do, but I ended up not having to do because I got to go on the rib boat in the end. And of course, the highlight of the trip was getting up close to the Needles, the jutting out rocks, and seeing the lighthouse up close. And as we got close to the Needles, he actually stopped the boat for a few minutes so we could kind of see it without that high speed bumpiness. And after the boat ride finished, I stayed on the bay for a few more minutes before getting the chairlift back up. After getting lunch in the cafe at the Needles, I then rode this bus called the Island Breezer, which goes around the kind of coast, the south coast of the island, and I got some really great views of Island Bay there as well. And there was really great kind of audio descriptions about what we were seeing and about the history of the island as well. And then this is on the normal bus back home to Shanklin, back to the B&B for a restful evening and watching some TV. So this is the next day. I'm riding what's called the Downs Breezer, which is another one of these audio guide tour buses. Took about an hour and a half, went all around the north of the island, some amazing views and a great audio guide as well. Got a little windy and chilly at parts as well. So this was actually the last day that the Breezer was running, because obviously it was the end of the season and I'm thinking it was getting too cold for it. I then in the afternoon got off the bus at Sandown. So this is Sandown Beach, another one of the famous beaches on the island. And I had a really lovely time. And there was this lovely kind of beachside bar. So I couldn't say no to a non-alcoholic beer on a beachside bar, even though it was autumn and a bit chilly. I enjoyed just kind of walking around the beach, spending some time there. It wasn't too chilly, which was nice. So I was there for about an hour. Then in the early evening, I went back to my Airbnb, having stopped at Tesco, and I picked up a local ale and some food to eat for dinner. So the next day was Sunday, and I was feeling really, really tired, actually. I did have some plans to go and do some stuff, but I was so tired, and I had had a busy week before going away and a busy week after. So I decided to just rest in the B&B, watch some movies, and I did go down to the local beach and get some food. But yeah, pretty much just had a nap and rest. And that wraps up my very quick visit to the Isle of Wight.